With the West Indian politician, I mean you went to big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unity, I know it's very easy. If you only rap to your people and tell them like we them is one race from the so we must push one common intention. It's for a better life in the region. For we woman and we children. That's what we the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean. They say that the Federation was imported quite from England, and you're going and form a character with a true West Indian flavor. But it's character started running, morning, noon, and night, all I hear it's just money speech that prime minister's giving. But I say no check of money, vote for my unity. First of all, your people need their identity to be one race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. So we must push one common intention. It's for a better life in the region. For we woman, and we children. That's what is the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean. Papa. CARICOM is wasting time. The whole Caribbean gone blind. If you don't know from where you're coming, then you can't plan where you're going. That's why some want to be communist, rather some want to be socialist, and one set of religion to add to the foolishness. Look, a man who don't know his history can't form no unity. Tell me how could a man who don't know his roots form his own ideology? One race from the same place can make the same trip on the same ship. So we must push one common intention. Before a better life in the region. For we woman, and we children. That's what we the ambition of the Caribbean, the Caribbean. The Federation done dead, and character going to bed. How come the cult of the Rastafarian? It's spreading through the Caribbean. They have Rastas now in Grenada, they have Rastas now in St. Lucia. But to run character, yes, them getting pressure. If the Rastafari movement spreading and character dying slow, then it's something them Rastas on that the politicians don't know. Look, it's one race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. So they pushing one common intention. They for a better life in the region. For the woman, and their children. That's what we do ambition.
The master himself, Black Stallion, the Caribbean man. We must put one common intention for we women and we children. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Friday night. Please share the link. Dr. Vincent Adams is here. Share the link, share the live. We're ready in a couple of minutes.
Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Life may be rough. I tell you, times may be tough, but we must keep going. I feel the pain. Yes, we keep pulling strain, but we must keep fighting. Regardless of how it comes, we just can't surrender. We got to keep working towards a better future. We would never be always down and fighting to stay off the ground. You must remember, all day would come. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, we must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind this gray cloud we're passing. Look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we going. No more negative thoughts. With a heavy load, look how we going down the road, but we must keep going. As though we commit a crime, and we keep serving time, but we must keep fighting. Remember they say that nothing lasts forever. One day is for the slave, one day for the master. So always keep your courage up. Don't allow confidence to drop. One day we'll be right there on top. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, really must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind this gray cloud we're passing. So look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where Trinity going. I said the journey may be long. Look how we keep falling down, but we must keep going. It keep getting hot, like the pressure won't stop, but we must keep fighting. Everybody in life does have their little setback, but we just can't say that's that. Sit down and relax. Don't care what you go through today. Surrender we must never say. Yeah, there's a will. There is a way. While we appreciate the little life got to give, regardless what's the hood, Trini, you must think positive. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Because I see a silver lining behind the gray cloud we're passing. So look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we going. And we love you.
The bright side is where we going. The black man himself, Dr. Leroy Calise, the Black Stallion. The bright side is where we going. Don't surrender. Don't surrender. Don't give up. Always keep fighting back. That's our motto here. That's our message. Right there on top we will be. This great crowd that is passing won't last forever. Won't last forever. But we can't sit down and surrender. We got to keep fighting back. We got to keep fighting back. Good evening to all of you. Please share the link. I'm not seeing much sharing passing here. Please share the link and share the live. The Black Stallion, those messengers of truth. Before that, he gave us the Caribbean Man from 1979, the Caribbean Man, and paying tribute to the Rastafarians. If Rasta growing across the Caribbean, then it's something them Rasta know that the politicians don't know. We're still fighting, struggling to make Caribbean integration, one Caribbean, to make that Caribbean integration a reality. We're still struggling. We notice in the wake of the elections in Venezuela, how divided our Caribbean leaders are. I don't think the Caribbean people are divided on these issues. It's the Caribbean leadership. And that is why Black Stallion said, how come you go to big institution, big university, and you can't unite 5-6 million people? Asking questions of our politicians. But then he says to us, look on the bright side, for the bright side is where we're going. When we get to the bright side, you will remember that we used to spend time here every evening at 7 o'clock, fighting back. You know, in that beautiful song by Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. Some people think it's a love song, it's a ballad, but it's none of those. It's a revolutionary song. It's a song of memory. I remember when we used to sit around the fire, that Georgie light. And we used to drink cornmeal porridge, of which I share with you. My feet is my only courage. So we got to push on through. We got to push on through. It's a song of memory. It's a song of memory, not a love song. No woman, no cry. The second no cry, the second no means don't. Caribbean language. The song is really no woman, don't cry. Remembering through the lens of the woman. And Marley singing that in 1973, long before the feminist movement in the Caribbean was where it was. He's talking, remembering poverty. It's a song about the memory of poverty. When we used to sit around the fire and drink cornmeal porridge, of which I share with you. So it's poverty, but it's sharing. Out of poverty comes the old notion of sharing, the old notion of community, the old notion of the village. That's what Bob Marley is singing about in that song. So when the Europeans came with socialism and they went to Africa, Africans said, well, it's what all you're talking about. We've been living like this all the time. Communal. And that's what the PPP is trying to break up in the African Guyanese community, setting us against each other, using emancipation to get us to fight against each other. But Bob Marley reminds us that we are a sharing people. And the Black Stallion says, look on the brighter side, for the bright side is where we going. Despair not. Despair not. Times may be hard, times may be rough, but if we keep fighting, we're going to get there. Claude McKay said, if we must die, then let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and angry dogs, making them mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, then let us nobly die, that the monsters we now defy shall be constrained to honor us. Fighting words coming from the belly of our Caribbean, our blackness, our brownness. our Caribbeanness. We are not a people of cowards. We don't come from a tradition of cowardice. If we must die, then let us nobly die, that even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. In Buxton, they gave us no money for emancipation. They thought we were going to die. And even they're saying no. That what we did in Buxton should be upheld. We took not a cent, and our village was free from alternative events. The PPP dare not come in that village and put on some alternative nonsense. And they dare not come to us and tell us that we're giving you money, so we have to come in your village. Last year, they said, we give you a small piece and the Prime Minister must come, and we said, no. Government money is not pay for play. And this year, there's no money. We said, thank you very much. And with your contributions, we're able to do it. Other black villages in Guyana must take a leaf out of the book of Buxton. Don't go crawling on your bellies. Look on the bright side. For the bright side is where we're going. My brother, Dr. Vincent Adams is here. He's been doing the wrongs. I wish I was lucky as he is, he's been doing the wrongs. So the thing is, when you do the wrongs and you come back, you have to report. Brother Yussi told me that in the old days, when he went to Eastern Europe, Czechoslovakia, I think he went in 1952. And the village hold, they held a big reception, going away reception for him at Tipperary Hall. And when he come back, he had to go to Tipperary Hall and report. And that they would do that when he was leaving for Africa after Burnham won the election in 1964. He said, Mr. Burnham, one thing I can do for you. Mr. Burnham wanted to send him to the United Nations as our permanent representative. He said, no, I'm not a diplomat. He said, but one thing I can do, I can go to Africa and introduce you to Africans. And he went to 13 countries. Before he went, they had the thing at Tipperary Hall, and they raised 40-odd pounds. In those days, we were still a colony, so our money was still pounds, shillings, and pence. And they raised 40-odd pounds, which he took and delivered to the freedom fighters there in Southern Africa. The first contribution from Guyana to the freedom fighters came from my village, Buxton. Brother Yussi took it when he was going in 1965, and he handed it directly to the freedom fighters there in Southern Africa. And of course, when he came back, he had to go to Tipperary Hall and report. So we got the tradition. We have the tradition. Of course, we're always learning something here on Politics 101. And so Dr. Adams is back. He was doing some moving around, the movement of job people. We're always moving, exodus. We're not the people who stay one place, People wonder that about us, They brought us against our will across the Middle Passage, and they settled me in these little islands, and we are constantly moving. Barbados to Guyana, Guyana to Suriname, Suriname to Grenada, Grenada to the United States, to Europe, and so on. We're always moving. The movement of job people. Exodus. Bob Marley's best-selling album. Remember that. You're learning some things. We are learning some things. So, Brother Vincent Adams was doing his Exodus. And so he's back now to report. My brother, welcome back.
Hey, how are you doing there, Dr. Hines? I missed you and our wonderful audience. I'm glad to be back. And like you say, we move, as they say, Rolling Stone gathers no moss. I think, we've gathered a lot of moss, but so we're trying to shed it now.
Exactly.
But I've been making my rounds, and I had to go to New York for a little bit. I was there. I got to give you this. I can't remember the exact date, but it was 2000 two Saturdays ago, or last week Saturday. I was in New York. We had a presentation with the oil and gas network, the group of technical professionals that the vice president seems to bash every week. He doesn't like people who are competent and are speaking the truth. So I had a session with Christopher Ram in New York, and so it was broadcast live across the nation and other places. What was interesting though, Dr. Hein, they had planned this event months in advance, and suddenly, and it was in Queens, New York, but suddenly the government decided to plan a recruitment workshop. I don't know, in Queens on the same very day and at the same time to pull. But based on the reports, I don't think it was so successful. And to make it worse, now they've increased the excise taxes on comebackies. People coming back home that they so on the one hand they're saying, hey, please come back home because we don't have the capacity. But on the other hand, they're discouraging folks by saying, hey, we're going to increase the excise tax to your automobile to 30%, even though this was done less than 48 hours after, I think it was Justice George ruled it as illegal, but it didn't matter to them. But anyway, as part of my, the time that I've been gone, I also um, accompanied my very good friend Sir Clive Lloyd, to receive his award, his CARICOM award in Grenada at the heads of state meeting in Grenada. So it was an honor to be there with Sir Clive. And of course, it was an honor to be amongst all of the prime ministers of CARICOM. But what was interesting, I learned quite a bit, by the way. I was a little bit disappointed in our president, who was he's the outgoing, what do they call it, chairman of CARICOM, or
yes.
So
Chairman.
he was the outgoing chair, and so he had to give a speech, his farewell speech, and I mean, I've never heard so much just whining and complaining. It's just to give, his entire speech was based on recognition as to, well, the media failed to recognize us for these things. And you would list a number of things, they failed to recognize. And then he brought up the 2020 elections and, commending Sir Ralph Gonzalez and those type of folks who were sitting right in front of him and, of course, sucking up all of the accolades. And what was interesting, the incoming head, which I think is going to be the next superstar, the very, very impressive young man from Grenada, the incoming head of CARICOM,
Deacon
Mitchell, very impressive. He gave the same, well, he had to give his speech, but he used the same information, but turned it on a positive note, rather than complain and say, well, he used that information, say, here's what we had accomplished and here's where we're going to be going, which was very, very impressive. And I had the opportunity. Of course, I sat at the same table with Dr. Ali, and we had our little friendly banter about Guyana and what's going on there, and Mr. Mitchell was also at the table. So I had the privilege of having conversations with him. But a very, very impressive. Look out for him. He's gonna be our next leader. He looks like 30, by the way, but he's 46.
Yeah.
But he's very, and just going around the island, people seems to be they love him. He connects well with the people. And because I was wondering, how did this man out Mitchell? But then you can see
Keith Mitchell.
So you can see that people really, from every single person, as I drove around and the airport and everything, everybody seems to love him. But the guy, very, very impressive, very sharp as a leader. So that was that was my report. And so again, I'm glad to be back. Sir Clive Lloyd, of course, that was the occasion. And many may know that the only thing that I personally didn't like, and I know a whole lot of people didn't like, was Gary Sobers was the first to receive the award, which is, obviously, no, I don't think anybody would question it. But Brian Lara and Viv Richards received it before Sir Clive, which was, again, it's part of the, I guess, the Caribbean politics. And to me and a lot of folks who see in terms of contribution to cricket in the West Indies, I don't think, besides Gary Sobers, I don't think anybody else could question that it should be Sir Clive. But nevertheless, he has received it, even though it's in the wrong sequence. I think he's very, very appreciative, and he gave a good speech, and even, recommended some things as West Indies cricket move forward.
And we are going to talk a little bit more about that on Sunday night on our cricket program. But
Yep.
It's good to see our CARICOM, our Caribbean leaders, recognizing people like Sir Clive Lloyd and others who have done so much for Caribbean integration. When one talks about uniting the Caribbean through cricket, Sir Frank Worrell and Sir Clive Lloyd are the ones who must be right up top, right there. Others made their contribution, but in terms of the pitch, using cricket as a form of Caribbean integration, Worrell had the vision, and Clive Lloyd put it in action, and we won. We won. We ruled the cricket world for 2 decades precisely because Caribbean integration. You heard Sir Clive Lloyd talk about a Grenadian rooming with a Bajan and a Guyanese rooming with a Jamaican and all of that. That he had he was a visionary in terms of what he wanted to use Caribbean cricket to do. But we'll talk more about that on Sunday. Some of you are saying, good to know our Guyanese history. Yes, it is true. I go back and I say that one of the glorious times for African Guyanese in politics was that period when Burnham and Guyana worked together. I am doing some research on that period to be published. But it was a period when African Guyanese really saw a lot of progress in our community, because we had the cultural leader and the political leader speaking from one book and one page, and fighting along that way. My brother elder Malcolm Paris called me, I think yesterday, and he was reminding me that Dr. Jagan was prepared to serve as Prime Minister under Burnham's presidency in the 1980s, and that Burnham died suddenly, and Hoyt took over, and Jagan was still prepared to serve as Prime Minister under Hoyt, and Hoyt didn't go through with it. And Brother UC always says that one of the downsides of Jagan, all of the other leaders, Burnham served under Jagan, Guyana served under Jagan, under Burnham, Chedi never served under anybody. And Guyana always felt that was a flaw. That had he learned what it was to serve under people, he may have done more for Guyana. And I want to impress that on my generation of Caribbean leaders. There's no shame in serving under somebody. A lot of people, I know a lot of you all here are critical of me sometimes, that I'm promoting Nigel Hughes or I'm promoting Aubrey Norton, that I believe that I am incapable. But I have no problem in serving under people. I think it's a mark of mature leadership when you are prepared to lead by serving under others, you know, and it's an example. And I said these are things that I would have learned over the years, from being, you know, nurtured and tutored by Brother UC Quayana. Some people tell me, David, you're just like you UC, you frighten leadership. And I laugh sometimes because my notion of leadership is not that you must always be on top. You can lead from the middle, you can lead from the bottom. So yes, we want to make that an example in our politics. Dr. Adams, emancipation.
Yeah.
We just out of emancipation, and we saw the nastiness by the president and the PPP government, that they are relentless in their intent to crush everything that is noble about the African, and they do it with a seeming smile. They do it by taking advantage of what they think are innate weaknesses of our people. They turned our emancipation, our sacred observances, into a nasty, nasty, nasty struggle, a nasty fight. I read in the Guyana Times today where they're accusing me of turning emancipation into a political event. And I was merely responding politically to a nasty political action by the PPP. And I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to sit down and allow that to happen. I always say, I do not tell African Guyanese, take the money and know what you're going to do. I say to them, the money is state money, it's government money, it's your business what you do. The thing is, they are glad when we tell people to take their money, because they then play on people's gratitude and people's, black people say thanks. And they play on that. And they use that to say to black people, you all are mendicants. And so that is why I never put black people in that position by telling them, take their money. What I say to black people is, your money, and you all decide how you are going to deal with your own money. But they like when we say, tell our people to go take their money, because they then use it to crush our people. Dr. Adams, were you happy with what the government attempted to do, and in many regards, in some regards, did during this emancipation?
Well, what I can say, I'm happy with people like yourself who overcame those obstacles. And that brings me, that's an excellent segue into exactly what I'm going to say here, because I think, we look at emancipation as a one-time event of slavery abolishment in 1838. And I think that's the mistake that we make. And we can see, for example, the obstacles that were thrown in y'all's way is just another obstacle that you've got to overcome. Emancipation is not an event. It's maybe a series of events that evolve over time. For example, slavery in 1838. We also had our independence in 1966. Then, of course, we had, even in America, we had Johnson's Great Society, where, we were all enjoying, we have in the 1964 Act of, giving us freedom to vote, women's rights, etc. So we are always going to have to overcome these obstacles that are always put in our way. See, emancipation didn't end in 1838, and I think we ought to change the meaning of what emancipation is. Things change, and as things evolve, we need to adapt, because we can see what's going on. Guyana has changed. It's a totally new country. There are going to be obstacles that are denying us our freedom. And emancipation is about freedom. And so we need to change that standard as to what is that new freedom that we need to fight for. Again, I applaud people like yourself, but I think we, especially folks like you who are leaders, in planning emancipations or annual emancipation event, what I would recommend, I think we ought to look at celebrating the emancipation and the progress we've made in the past, but at the same time, have another day of, to whether it's by protest or what, to overcome, to make sure that we enjoy freedom for the future. So we should have a day of celebration of what we've accomplished, but I say have another day of protest of the things that we're being denied of. Because I think that's where it's a distraction when you just go look at, well, okay, we're all celebrating the abolishment of slavery. Okay, that's great. Now Guyana, for example, we see what's happening in Guyana with we're in a new era of oil. And I've got to read, and I think this here came from one of the newspapers, and I can't remember which one, but here's what it says. It says emancipation at its brightest is the freedom to participate freely, fairly in the natural resources patrimonies, with none bigger and more beautiful than the national oil patrimony. When any single citizen of Guyana, little one or big one, poor one or rich one, is prevented in some manner from that fullness and fairness of participation, then that can never represent emancipation. Any limitation to enjoy the fruits of that national oil harvest is not emancipation at its truest. So again, it's nice to celebrate, but we've got to change the whole meaning of what it is that we should be doing in terms of the past, to celebrate it, but fight for the future. And it's exactly the hurdles that you had to overcome, even to celebrate the past. So we need to fight now. We need to have, if we're going to have a day of emancipation, we need to have another day of fighting for what have been denied us, to make sure that the future, those hurdles are cleared for our future. But again, I got to applaud you as one of the prominent leaders in this, and I've got to applaud you to standing your grounds and fighting those obstacles that were attempted to be put in a way. Just like, of course, it's not of the same value, but it's the same thing. I mean, that's their modus operandi. Remember, they decided to compete against the presentation that we had in New York on the very same day. Yes. To have a job fair right close to where we had our, that was planned for months. So that's their modus operandi. But at least we've recognized it, and we need to come up with strategies to confront it.
And the point you're making there is well taken. We had a minor friendly argument in our village among the organizers. Some of them said that we should dance and we should sing and we should celebrate emancipation and we shouldn't have political leaders come in and all of that. And the rest of us had to say, look, we have to think forward. We must not continue to sing and dance for massa and for people to think that that is all we are. Emancipation, yep. They sang, they danced, but they fought. And the story of emancipation, as you are saying there, the story of emancipation is not just how much massa beat us. It's how we beat massa and gain our freedom. And we walked off that plantation and we humanized Guyana. So our people, our foreparents were always forward thinking.
Yeah.
Forward thinking. And perhaps we today are satisfied to, some of us, celebrate the past without thinking about the future. Our foreparents, Dr. Vincent Adams, they couldn't read and write, most of them.
Yeah.
But one of the first things they did was to build schools.
And they weren't allowed to read and write.
Right, that's the point. But they knew the importance of education. That's right. And they made it possible for you and I today to carry DR, behind our names.
Yeah.
It's not that we are bright.
No.
It's that our foreparents who couldn't put DR behind their names because they were structurally, institutionally denied that. As soon as they break down those gates, they set up the structures for you and I and others to today carry titles behind our names.
Yes.
That they did not want. Whether you're a nurse with RN behind your name, or you're academic with DR behind your name, or you're a lawyer with Esquire, those things were not meant for us. And that we today can carry those things, it is because our foreparents who were denied it, the minute they walked through those gates, they started to think about 2024. In 1838, they were thinking about 1938 and 2038. And we have to put ourselves in that mood. I so completely agree with you. And we want to make that call to the youngsters here to help us push forward. What Bob Marley said, we got to push on through. We got to push on through to make everything all right. Good evening to all of you who are joining us. Yes, we're back. Emily, good evening. I didn't see you for the entire emancipation season. We didn't see you, Emily. I wonder what's the problem. But anyhow, good evening to all of you and all of you who contributed. Good evening to my brother Wayne Caesar. And Wayne, I know we owe you some appearances, and we shall be honoring them very, very, very soon. Very soon. Mr. Vibert from Grove, you were missing in action in Buxton this year. Mr. Vibert, you were missing in action. Doc, let's talk about this teacher story, because that is part of the emancipation story.
Absolutely.
Because we're just talking about education, and that education was emancipation promise. That education, and it was by no accident that it was African Guyanese who became the teachers, the schoolmasters, the schoolmistress, all of us, regardless of race. On this program, you and I have talked about teachers who, by one action or two, at the symposium in Buxton, one of my teachers there who taught me English language and English literature in second form 2 was there. And she's always at events. And every time I look at that lady, Teacher Fenella Abrams, I ask myself, where would I be had it not been for people like that? I remember about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I'd just gone back home after studying and on the same emancipation thing. And that lady came backstage and she pulled me aside after I was finished speaking. She said, "This is what I saw in you when you were a little skinny boy in Form 2. That potential, that what you said on the stage there, I saw that in you and I nurtured it. I didn't know where you were going to go with it, but I saw something." And so many of us, where we are today is a result of our teachers intentionally, they knew. Because part of teaching is not teaching you to read and write only. It's also to spot where your talents are, where your things are. And so to see how this government is brutalizing teachers really angers people like you and me, because without teachers, so they give the teachers 6.5. Then they say 7. Now they're saying what? 8.
Yep.
This brutalization, the shaming of our teachers, it's one of the worst political actions in the history of Guyana in the Caribbean, the way in which this government continues to shame teachers. Over to you, my brother.
Well, and I think you and I, and it's if people have been listening to this program, they would know that this is personal to both of us. And I've told my story coming from Christianborg, one of the poorest communities in the nation, and it was teachers. There were like a couple of teachers who brought me where I am. Without them, I could not have been what I've achieved. I had a teacher. We played cricket and table tennis every single day, but then I had to study every night with him. That allowed me to play cricket for Guyana as a teenager. And then, of course, we know the rest of the story where I ended. Well, not ended, but what I accomplished. But the thing is, it's so much backwardness. Sometimes I feel sorry for this government because of their backwardness. Education is what builds a nation. When I worked for the U.S. government at its highest level, that was our mantra. That was when we built our budget and our mantra was to make America competitive with the rest of the world. And the number one criteria for doing that was education. It wasn't infrastructure. As a matter of fact, infrastructure was at number 3. The second was to follow the rule of law. And there's a reason behind that. But it was education. So here we have an education that molds a nation. Teachers spend more time with their kids molding what those kids are. Because remember, if a kid, even if a kid is at home, their parents are at work. So the only time that kids spend with their parents basically are, let's say, at nights. Their parents are sleeping. So real time of value is spent with the teachers that molds kids. So here we are with all of this oil money. We call ourselves the richest country. Of course, I had to argue with my good friend Elson that we should stop calling ourselves the richest country, because we cannot call ourselves the richest country when half of our population is living on $5 per day. So, we using this GDP stuff is the most misrepresented metric for measuring richness of a country. But it's about the education. Here it is in this very rich country. Our teachers are the lowest paid in the entire Caribbean. I'd written an article that said even Grenada, that produces nutmeg, their teachers were making almost 3 times what our teachers are making. I saw a number there from the president of the Ghana Teachers Association, where 9,000, which means about 60% of our teachers. Do you know how much money they're making per month? 100,000 Guyana dollars per day. 60% of our teachers, 100,000 Guyana dollars per day. 500 US.
Per month.
A month. Sorry, what did I say per day? Sorry.
You said per day.
I wish. That's what they should be making, by the way. But these are the people who are going to mold the future of our country. And with all of this wealth that is coming in, we're putting 60% into infrastructure and a minuscule into teachers' pay. And like I said, I've written before, teachers deserve no less than doubling their salaries today. And even in order to double their salaries, it would only take, what is it? I did the calculation, like 2% out of that $666 billion that is going into infrastructure. If you give them 50% raise, it's like 1% of that $660,000. $660 million, sorry, $660 billion is going into infrastructure. That is going into maybe 1% of our population. The rich friends and families are getting that $666 billion. And all we've got to do to even give them a 50% raise, which will only be another, what is it, like $50,000, give them $150,000. It would take 1% or so out of that $666 billion. So why can't you do that? And you would still get your 650 something. I think it's 600. You still get 650 something billion dollars for infrastructure. I mean, that, even though it's still unreasonable, but at least it would be at least something to encourage them and to build our foundation for the future of Guyana. But they really don't care because their kids are going to private school. They're getting like $2 million. Those ministers, Minister Priya Manichan herself, I think she's getting close to $2 million or $1.8 million per month. Her kids are going to private school. She's got chauffeur. She don't have to worry about transporting her kids when the day come because she's got drivers and all this kinds of stuff. So that's the disparity that I'm talking about. When we talk about Guyana as a rich country, we cannot be a rich country when they're treating our teachers the way that they're treating them, because you're living big, fat, and happy, and half of the population is living on $5 or less per day. So that's it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace in a country that is calling itself the richest country on the planet.
You're quite right. You know, a young person we were doing some self-criticism of what we tried to do during the emancipation observances. And this young person was saying that we should have addressed the issue of, drugs, smoking, the young people smoking drug at the corner of the street, and some of the ills in the villages and so on. And I know the place that is coming from, but I think the indictment is not our young people who are smoking up and thing at the corner. Our indictment is the system.
Yeah.
A lot of us disagreed with Burnham's management of, it's his mode of management. But by God, national service as a government intervention had cleared the streets of little boys and little girls standing up at the corner, hanging out. And if this government or any government is serious, they would put programs in place to clean our streets. And so therefore, the young person was saying that we should have talked more about drug smoking and things. I understand where that person was coming from. But I felt that was not the time for us to be poking our fingers in our young people's eyes as if they're out there because they wake up in the morning and say, I will do nothing else in my life than to go to the corner and smoke drugs. The government is there to look after the welfare of our people. That word, you live in America part of the time, and you look at the state constitution of Tennessee or Arizona, anywhere, that word welfare is in there. And if our government, and in this case, I'm not just indicting the PPP government, I'm indicting our own government, which was there, that we need to use resources to put our young people in positions where opportunities are open to them. Your thoughts?
Oh, without question. I use my example. You and I, both of us grew up poor. So we did not grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth. My mother couldn't read or write, but we did not even know that we were poor because we had neighbor community. But these days everybody got to go there and hustle. We had our little garden. You remember Bornham, when in Bornham time, Field House and Closing Nation, everybody had a little garden. We used to get your seeds for free. But it's that culture that is built in. Is that vision that is totally missing. Look, here's a good example that myself and the Prime Minister had. We exchanged a few words in when we were in Grenada. I challenged him and I said, wait a minute, you guys had that track, that all-weather track in Linden was handed over to you halfway done in 2020, and until now you can't finish it. It's still full of bush and grass. The man argued with me and said, no, it's finished. I said, how you know? He said, well, he just got up there. When I called Duran Adams and there was absolutely not. Devin said the track is far from finished. All the columns that are empty. The track is still 4 years now. And they hadn't finished that track. Now, those are the kinds of things I remember when I was a little kid. Like I told you, the teachers used to have me out playing and and finding things to do. Nowadays, the kids do not have any recreation facilities, organized that is, and and even those who have to go to it's costly for them. They got to buy their own cricket gear, their own football. So they're no organized way of these kids to occupy their time, even to go to lessons, to get people to volunteer to go and teach. Even we don't have that type of thing that existed even when we used to be poor, but we used to do things of value. It wasn't about material things. It was what was valuable to us. A good education. Our parents recognized that, and they got encouragement. They, like teachers, for example, Dr. Hines. Teachers were the most respected people in the community. And because of how the teachers are being treated nowadays, nobody respect them. The teachers themselves got to hustle for themselves, even come and selling sugar cake and all kinds of stuff at these schools. That never used to happen in our time. They were the most respected teachers and policemen. So it comes from those institutions, from the top down. And to me, they really do not care because they live big, fat, and happy in security. They've got security guard, they've got drivers. So they really don't care with the rest of the community. It's all about selfishness. And they don't care about if they're, again, it's their friends and families and favorites. That's what it is. And we've got to change that, Dr. Hines. If we do not break the back of that, then there would be no future for those young kids.
Yes, yes, yes. And Philip is saying quite right here, they will not do anything of that sort. Their aim is to paint a picture that all black folks do is smoke, thief, and party. And what Philip is saying here is what we call, Dr. Adams, the subtext, that they are prepared to not do anything policy-wise to get our people off the streets. And then we start to turn on those youngsters and say the youngsters are bad, as if they're born bad, and so on. And that is why I am quite careful. I remember as a boy, I born and got a place called Bottom Station. Under the train station, that's where they used to gamble. And as a little boy, you're curious, you're going watching the gamble. And the big boys who gamble used to chase me. Not here. I so badly want to go and nick with it. I said, David, you're a schoolboy. Not here. And they would chase me from under that station. And we had a gambler saloon, Auntie Jarvis, gambler saloon. Dr. Adams, I grew up in the village, always want to know what inside the saloon look like. You're playing like if you're passing, and you're jumping up to see what's going. And when those guys who gambling in there see you, they chase you and say, not even in the vicinity. I am saying that to say that our people aren't born so. And our people recognize that what they're doing is not awesome. I pass a place they call Cliff Street in the village there. And I know it's Cliff Street. And everybody knows Cliff Street. Dr. Adams, I never see a spliff. Whenever I pass there, this spliff does hide. And what I'm saying is, don't believe those young people are foolish. They're not foolish. They understand that what they're doing is not an example that they want to set for others. And I think it's up to people like us who are in politics, in leadership, to use the power of governmental institutions to help those young men, mostly young men, who are caught in that situation. And obviously this government, as Philip is saying, do not have an ethnic or racial interest in doing that. the burden is then left to us if and when we put our hands on power again. Any comments?
No question. Again, everything for me starts with education and the teachers, by the way. Look, when we were small, we can relate to this, Dr. Hines. Teachers, if you're weak in a certain subject, teachers would volunteer to give you teachers would volunteer their time to give you extra lessons in the afternoon. You didn't have to pay anything. Nowadays, because the teachers, they've got to try to make up for the measly salary that they're getting, they're charging you all kinds of money because that's how they make their extra, their extra small piece. But in our time, they would volunteer to teach you extra lessons so that you can catch up with the class. That doesn't happen anymore. So those kids now who are being left behind, they're finding themselves frustrated. If their morale is just going through the bottom, and they turn to their alternative because then they're embarrassed, with the other kids, doing well, and they believe that they're a bunch of dunces, and they turn to going on the streets and doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. So I come back again. If we make these teachers whole, we're going to go back to that old tradition where teachers going to recognize what their role in society is. And because teachers, again, see these kids in their when the kids are busy and doing it during the daytime more than the parents, they're the ones who mold the nation. And we've got to give them the tools, which we enjoy, Dr. Hines. Like I said, we grew up as poor as what they call it, a church mouse. But we did not even know it because we had the love and support from the teachers. And of course, we come home in the afternoon and we go to bed and from our parents. But it's all starts with the teachers. And that's the one thing that this government does not understand. They don't believe that the teachers are value anything, as we can see how they're treating them disgracefully. Doc, did I lose you there?
Yes, Dr. Vincent, and I'm sorry, I muted myself. Good
Okay.
evening to all of you. Good evening to all of you, and welcome to Politics 101. And I see my sister, Linda Campbell, Cookie from Buxton, Bagdam size. Yes, Cookie, you remember they used to gamble at gate, and I go down at gate and watching gamble one afternoon. Your family, Sandy, the late Sandy, Sandy come out from Bagdam, and he see me watching gamble. The gate was the gate to the Bagdam, so Sandy was a farmer. So he coming out with mango, and he see me watching gamble. And he say, "Hey, come. He take 2 mango and force in one pocket, pours 2 in the other pocket, and give me 1. So I said, Sandy, what is this? He said, catch bottom station. Catch bottom station is where I live. Bagdam is the gate. He give me 5 mango and said, catch bottom station. You place is not it. This not for you. And Sandy and I remain friends, and we would, he, of course, was older than I was, but up until he died, we would always remember. He just tell me, "You heard I call you doctor, now tell them Sandy help you." The way in which the community valued education.
Yes.
The valued education. And to see this government hammering teachers is really a matter of shame. But as you said, we've got to stop complaining, and we've got to start taking action. And when the teachers come back out from vacation, this matter has to be settled in the most robust way. No more should we allow our teachers to be begging this government for what belongs to them.
I totally agree. And and I've always said, and you said the same thing, the teachers will not win this by themselves. And I'm telling you, it's really frustrating to see, like, the Public Service Union with Patrick Yard and those folks not coming out and supporting them. Because I'm telling you, Dr. Hines, I'll be willing to bet anything. If that union of all unions comes out and support them, the strike would be over in a few days. but they're not doing it. They'll go there and shut down the government, period. But right now they're on their own, and when there's certain teachers who are going back to work, and because they're scared and they're being targeted because they're among the few, but if they see that they're getting support from a larger majority from outside of the teaching environment, they would be more encouraged to get out there. But I'm really worried that they without the public service union, for example. I'm really worried that as to what exactly is going to be the end result. But the people like you and I and others on public media need to keep support them and keep the pressure on, because it cannot be just going and because they have no respect for the teachers to be offering them 10%. By the way, have we forgotten that the vice president and the president, when they were in opposition, they were going after the now opposition, the coalition, to give the teachers 50% pay raise? Did you remember that, Dr. Hines?
Yes, yes,
That
yes.
both of them were calling for 50% pay raise, and that was when we didn't have oil, Dr. Hines. That was when we did not have oil. So that's the hypocrisy and the dishonesty in all of this. And they're talking about politicizing. What could be more politicizing than that? When you're in opposition, you're calling for 50% pay raise. When we didn't have oil, now we have oil, and you want after the teachers are fighting and going on strike, you want to come up with 8% to give them. What could be more politicizing of this situation than that?
Dr. Vincent Adams. Dr. Adams, we've been hearing a lot of talk about oil interest charges. And the vice president, of course, a waxing lyric on what the government is doing and what it's not doing. Bring us up to speed with that discourse.
Well, sometimes I don't know where to start. A lot of times when you get into these discussions, like trying to argue with a 5-year-old. Here it is that the vice president, by the way, and the minister saying here, well, first of all, we're not investing, which is nonsense. The government is investing because, and that's another story. So there's an interest that Exxon is charging us with the money that they're investing, etc. That interest is going into cost, meaning paying the expenses that comes out of the profit. So the more expenses it is, the less profit we get. Okay. So here is the foolishness that this vice president is saying. He said every week they ask him, the media ask him, well, how much interest are we paying? Well, his son, I don't know who gave him this answer, but his son is coming up now in the last few weeks. Well, I've told you, we're paying zero. The man even made this signal. We're paying zero interest. However, listen to this foolishness, and you don't have to be an oil export or a finance export. He's saying we're paying zero interest. However, the FPSOs, meaning the ship, the $1 billion ship, they got to borrow money, and then they're leasing those ships. So there's a lease cost, a hell of a lot of lease money we're paying that is coming out of the cost that is coming out of our profit. However, the money that they're borrowing to build the ships, they're putting it back into the lease. So the interest that they're paying is going into the lease. So whatever interest they're paying off of those loans to supply the ships, it's going into Exxon paying the lease, which goes into the cost bank that is coming out of our money. So he's foolishly saying we're paying zero interest. However, the interest is going into the lease that we're paying for. I mean, it's so foolish and stupid that he cannot be. If this guy is supposed, I guess he's supposed to have studied finance. So I believe he just take people for fools, and nobody's paying attention, and he's using fancy words. So it's all nonsense. We are paying interest on that loan, And they need to tell us what that interest is. Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? Or what? He cannot tell me he doesn't know, because that would even be worse if he doesn't know. And stop lying, or stop trying to kerfuffle the issue by saying we're paying zero interest. However, the interest is being charged through the lease that is part of the cost, banker cost style, which is coming out of our profit. So you can't say we're not paying interest. It's absolute nonsense and foolishness, and it's a con game.
And of course, he keeps saying that the opposition does not have a strategic plan. The assumption is that he has a strategic plan. Let's talk about that as we wind up
Well,
the program.
that's the other funny part. So every week he's faced with this question. So I mean, sometimes, when I look, because I normally look at him so that I could, respond
Right.
to certain things. So some days I will be laughing, and then some days I'll get my blood pressure just goes up, to be honest. So Thursday, this last Thursday, the man decided to stack a stack of some volumes of reports. He said, here is our plan. But guess what? This plan was written in 1990. I think he said 1994 or something.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, he said they invited
Dr. Kenneth King and others worked on
That's
that
right.
plan.
That's right. So this is a 1994 plan now that he stacked in his desk again. It's to con people that here is this plan. It's 1994. So that's a 30-year-old plan he's putting on his desk to con folks that this is his strategic plan. And but that's the kind of thing that the guy is a con artist, that he gets away with these type of things. So there cannot be anything that is based on all of this infrastructure that people are questioning. How are these infrastructure, are they part of your plan? You're spending our budget has tripled in the last 3 or 4 years. So the question has always been, where is your strategic plan? You're going back to the sovereign wealth fund, and look up to recently, I think what they said the last drawdown was 60 billion. You're going back there all the time. Where is that plan in terms of how to spend this money? Rather than waking up one morning and saying that you're going to go, that you want $60 billion, you got the votes, so you're taking advantage of that. So it's ridiculous to bring a 30-year-old plan and put it on your desk to impress folks that you had a plan. That plan had nothing to do. I guarantee you, there's nothing there to talk about the energy project, the $2 billion project or something that they can't even get funding for. That is also going to be paid for by the taxpayers, because Exim Bank is not giving them, they've not approved it.
Dr. Vincent Adams there.
You
Dr.
know,
Adams, only the other day we were talking about $1.2 trillion budget, and already the government has gone back for supplemental. What's happening?
yeah, that's exactly and they're taking advantage. Of course, they've got the votes, but they're asking for this money without a plan. And again, he's bringing this stack of volumes of stuff to impress folks that they know what they're doing. None of that volume, that 1994 volume of whatever he put on there, has anything to do with the question that people are asking. You're spending this money, your budget has tripled. Where is the strategic plan for spending this money? What are the projects you have there? Which is a for planning. There's nothing of the sort. So it's a big bluff, because I remember the energy project that is about what is it now, $2 billion US. He said that there was no feasibility study, which is required by the contract with the Exxon, that you must do a feasibility study if you're going to utilize that gas. No feasibility study. He woke up one morning, his feasibility study that he bragged about he said it's a no-brainer. That's his feasibility study, a no-brainer. So there's no plan whatsoever. And so that's a big bluff and a big con game with that stock of documents.
And of course, the hypocrisy, because just the other day he was deriding the coalition say all they were doing feasibility studies, and he ain't got time with feasibility studies. He ain't
Yes.
got time with plan. He's an
Yep.
action man. He
Yep.
ain't got no, and now he claiming that the opposition ain't got no plan. When the other day he was deriding them
You're
for
right.
having plans and
Yes.
things. The man is all over the place, and you're quite
Yep.
right. They
Yep.
really believe he's stupid. And that is why when I say my auntie send me to school, they just get vexed, because I'm saying we are not foolish as you are making us out to be. Dr. Adams, always a pleasure to have you. You could be doing anything on a Friday night, because after all, Friday night is Friday night.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're heading out now to the wake of Dr. Simpson de Silva, who is being buried tomorrow.
Oh.
Yes, you
So,
know him or of him, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I know of him. I know of him. Definitely, I know of him.
Yes, he's been buried tomorrow in
Give my
Bolingbroke.
regards to give my
Yeah,
regard, please.
right. I most certainly will. Became a minister at age 25. And
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I remember saying to the Night of Reflections at Padre G that I remember when he was named the minister, I wasn't a supporter of the PNC at all. But when Burnham named this 25-year-old boy as a minister, I mean, you know, it was my age. It be a grow match, and to see my grow match as a minister, it didn't matter
Yeah.
that I didn't support the government. So in that sense, I grew up with Simpson de Silva,
Sure.
and really got closer to him as he became very much part and parcel of the Black freedom struggle here in Guyana. Gone too soon, but the
Yes.
ancestors would be glad to welcome him back into the kingdom. My brother,
Sure.
thank you very much, and I'll see you on Sunday.
It was a pleasure. See you on
Yes,
Sunday.
thank you. Dr. Vincent Adams here tonight, sharing with us some thoughts, some insights, and we are all richer because of it. The struggle continues. The struggle continues to be enriched by the thoughts and the ideas of our people. Without us, there is no struggle. The struggle goes on, and we must endeavor not to complain, but to state our case and then to fight, 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 fight. I'm going to see you all on Sunday for some cricket, and then back here next Monday. In the meantime, just take a little time and relax. Spend some time with the children or the grandchildren, or the nephews and the nieces, the young ones. They need the attention of us elders. The young lady at the pump gas station, I saw her smiling, and I said, Jolis, which one these car man get you smile? She said, no. Our daughter came home today and asked her if she know Dr. David Hinds. And she said yes. And the daughter said, well, the man come and talk to me today, and the man powerful, the man said some things, and I want you to get to know that man. I had gone to summer school, as they call them now in Guyana. One of the teachers invited me to speak about emancipation, and there were kids 9, 10, and 11, and we had a good time. There were about 50 of them there, and that was my most enjoyable moment for the emancipation, talking with those kids, and they were all ears. They were prepared, you can tell. But they were taking in the information. And of course, when that young lady said that her daughter went home and told her that Dr. David Hinds came, and he said he's from Buxton, and that she must get to know that man, you know that you are getting through to our children. Sometimes we forget them. The children. And there's a way in which they soak up the knowledge that we as adults really can't understand, because these children and the technology today, their minds are geared in a certain way, and we often forget them. I endeavor to do more of that. If any of you teachers who give lessons and all those things are listening, and you all need me to come and to talk to the children, I am open. I'm leaving space for that now that I have discovered that there is something there for us to work with. Good night, and I'll see you all on Monday.